Today we're going to look at crepes. I'm on a journey to discover what goes into the food we eat, why it matters, and how we can use this knowledge to make our own cooking taste better. After being diagnosed with 17 food allergies, I'm determined to relearn how to cook, rethink how to eat, and reimagine what mealtime looks like. Crepes are a thin pancake served usually with some kind of filling. The crepes in this recipe are allergy-friendly, gluten-free, vegetarian, and vegan. One of the challenges with crepes is that I'm allergic to 4 of the 6 ingredients, and that's if you count water as an ingredient. The flour, egg, milk, and butter all need to be substituted. Let's take a look at the ingredients normally required to make these crepes. This crepe recipe calls for 6 ingredients: flour, eggs, milk, butter, salt, and water. The first substitution is for the flour. Now you have to be careful when choosing an alternative flour depending on what allergies you may have, because even gluten-free flours can contain other allergens. As you can see here, this particular flour doesn't include any almond or any wheat or any other of the common allergens. The next substitution is for the egg. I chose to use bananas instead of egg. Now, egg plays an important role in many recipes. In this case, the egg primarily acts to bind all of the other ingredients together. A banana has a similar consistency and will also act to bind everything else together, so that way the end result isn't crepes that crumble and fall apart. The next substitute is for the butter. For this, I chose to use some sunflower oil. Now, butter has 2 roles in this recipe. The first also provides some structure to the rest of the ingredients, and the second role is to help prevent the crepes from sticking to the pan. Now, the sunflower oil isn't going to provide much in terms of structure, however, it is also going to help the crepes from sticking to the pan and kind of maintain a similar texture in the finished product. The last substitution is the milk. For this, I chose to use oat milk. Oat milk is a little bit thicker, a little bit creamier, and will have a similar consistency to the original milk that was going to be used. Since milk is one of the largest ingredients by volume, it's important to maintain this consistency. That way the finished crepe is similar to the original product. Whenever I make a recipe like this that involves mixing a bunch of ingredients together, I always start by mixing the dry ingredients first. The dry ingredients are going to blend better that way. If you try to add dry ingredients and wet ingredients alternating with each other, the dry ingredients might dissolve or mix into the wet ingredients at different rates. The result is a clumpy mess, or some dry ingredients that may not dissolve all the way because one that you added earlier has already taken up all the room. Before we add in the banana, we're going to go ahead and mash it. The point of this is to break down the banana as much as possible. That way you don't end up with a clumpy mess in the final product. The more smooth the consistency is going into the batter, the better it's going to mix with everything else, and the less it's going to stand out in the finished crepe. Of course, if your goal is to have the banana stand out, you can always leave it a little bit lumpier. When I'm mixing like this, I prefer to use a whisk because it requires the least amount of effort to get things mixed as thoroughly. Each of the different metal strands will actually help mix the batter evenly. If you don't have a whisk, that's totally okay, a spoon will work. For this recipe, I'm going to set the heat to a medium-high. Now, my initial reaction is this is a little bit high for something like crepes. but if it turns out to be too high, we can always adjust it down throughout the cooking process. That's an important part of making anything like this, is paying attention to the heat as you're cooking. And remember that you are in control of the heat. You can always turn it up or turn it down partway through the cooking as needed. Now remember I said that we put some oil into the batter to stop the crepes from sticking to the pan. While this does help, it's still usually not quite enough. So to finish this off, we're going to put a little bit more oil in the pan before we put any batter in there. And this will help ensure that there is a layer of oil between the pan and the batter, which will prevent the batter from sticking as much. Batter that is sticking too much will result in crepes that don't come easily out of the pan and will fall apart when you're trying to remove them. You may notice that I'm using a measuring cup for the scoop to pour the batter into the pan. I'm doing this, but I'm not using the measuring cup to measure the batter precisely. I'm actually using a half of a cup here, and I'm going to fill it halfway to 3/4 of the way for each crepe. This is something where eyeballing it actually works really well. You just want enough batter that'll cover most to all of the pan without producing a thick layer. To pour the batter into the pan, I'm going to start in the middle and kind of move in a circular motion. Again, the idea is to try to get the batter to spread out evenly across the pan. I can take the pan and swirl it around, that way you can see the batter spreads out a little more evenly, and it's okay if it doesn't all touch the pan right at the same time. As long as you do this and you don't take too long, it will result in an evenly cooked crepe. This step is one of the key differences between crepes and pancakes. Crepes are a lot thinner, pancakes you want to be thicker and usually stay together in one piece. To know when your crepe is ready to be flipped, you're going to take a look at the edges of the crepe. What you'll see is bubbles forming, and you'll see the edge start to turn a little bit brown or at least lose its shininess. This is the same technique that you would use if you were making pancakes. A lot of recipes that you will find include some kind of cooking time for the crepes or pancakes. While this might be a useful place to start with, remember that the heat of your stove may be different than the stove that they used, and the amount of batter that you use might be different, and how thick your crepe is might be different. The most reliable way to tell when the crepe is done is to look at it and look for that color change. To flip crepes, I like to use a wide turner, also known as a spatula. The wider the spatula, the easier it will be to slide under the crepes, and the more surface area will be there to help stop the crepe from falling apart when you flip it. Go ahead and work slowly to lift the crepe up, but as soon as you flip it, you'll want to flip it quickly with a fluid motion. This will prevent the crepe from folding underneath itself. In between each crepe, you'll want to take a look at your pan to make sure that you still have a little bit of oil left. It's okay if there's not enough for it to pool everywhere, you just want that glistening oily surface. Also watch for any bits of crepe or splatters from the batter that may have fallen into the pan. Those will continue to cook and to burn if you don't remove them. Remove them between each crepe before pouring the next bit of batter. I usually eat my crepes for breakfast, and I like to fill my breakfast crepes with fresh fruit and some kind of whipped cream. Since I haven't found a cream recipe that is dairy-free and doesn't rely on coconut or almond milk yet, I'm just going to fill these with fruit. Bananas and different types of berries are my favorite. Here we're going to use bananas and blueberries. When I fill my crepes, I like to put them upside down on a flat surface. I will line up the fruit just inside of the crepe, and then sometimes I like to put the fruit a little ways in from the edge of the crepe. That way I can fold the top of the crepe over and gather the fruit together to make rolling the rest easier. We'll go ahead and place these on the plate. Of course, the easiest way to arrange crepes is side by side. I like to cross them over because I think it looks a little bit nicer. And of course, no dish is complete without a garnish. To add a little something extra on top of the dish that makes it look a lot nicer. In this case, I'm going to use some powdered sugar. Now I have a small sift, or sieve as they're sometimes called, to sprinkle the powdered sugar on evenly. I think this gets the best results, but of course you can accomplish a similar effect just by putting a bit of sugar in a spoon and tapping it against your finger. Once we're done adding sugar on top, we now have our completed dish. Crepes are an excellent example of a dish that is really simple, easy to make, and yet contains a lot of common allergens. This is a dish that you don't have to give up just because you have allergies or some kind of dietary restrictions. You just have to get a little bit creative with the ingredients that you use. Now I'm going to go enjoy some breakfast. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Doing so will really help me out and enable me to bring you more content, more cooking recipes, more tips and tricks. See you next time.